Thank you very much. I would like to invite now the representative from the Dominican Republic.
Buenas tardes.
Ready. Okay. Good afternoon. In representation of the Dominican Republic, I hereby thank the Ecuador of Ecuador on behalf as represented by the minister, and we also thank the United Nations represented here by Margarita and the people of Guayaquil for their kind hosting of this event, and the people here who have helped this attending and caring for us these days. And from the Bihogo framework meeting we made since then, important measures in our country. We assessed the national system, and then we had a diagnose, and then that allowed us to have an early warning system and with meteorological methods, and we're now working on tsunami alert systems. And we also have a national plan for risks and an emergency plan as well, and we updated with the communities all legislations related to risk management, and the community networks also were structured with the aid of the Red Cross, the Dominican Republic Red Cross, and we strengthened the operations, the Emergency Operations Center, and we created one system of information. We also disseminated the plan of action in the different schools. We also created groups, rescue groups for remote areas with cooperation of Argentina, Brazil, and the South Command of the U.S. And we also created a guideline for vulnerable populations in cases of earthquakes, and we also worked on with hospitals and schools in the improvement of infrastructures. We included as well as a fourth axis of the National Strategic Plan for Development, everything having to do with the risk disaster management. And we also included some new platforms for managing managing disaster risks. We have also improved the mechanisms in the Caribbean region and the national emergency funds, and we've created new units for managing risks and at the local regional levels. At the social security hospitals, we have allocated more funding for better care, and we also have, with the aid of PAHO and World Health Organization and the Autonomous University of Santo Domingo, we have made joint efforts and best practices in everything, and humanitarian aid and risk management has been put into place and we have helped Haiti. Their disasters in the Dominican Republic was able to channel all of the international humanitarian aid directed to the Haiti, and we have become the greatest humanitarian bridge of the history of mankind. After post 2015, we expect more good practices and knowledge transfer, and both through the South-South countries, cooperation countries, and the North-South. We expect more empowerment to local governments and other community actors in the implementation of the strategy for reducing risk. Reducing. Thank you very much, and on behalf of my country.
We'd like to invite the representative of Uruguay for his statement, to make his statement. Madam Representative, Madam Minister, good afternoon. Awareness on emergency and disaster risks was awakened a few years ago in Uruguay. Natural threats in our country are almost exclusively of hydrometeorological nature, and according to historical records, we can say that the incidence of these adverse events has a limited dimension in comparative terms. But this benevolence of nature, that even though is real, was exaggerated by a social imaginary that were using averages and means and not extreme values that have been extremely severe. This way of thinking, of analyzing our surroundings and the risks are changing. Every day the Uruguayans know more about natural and anthropic threats and our vulnerabilities. This progressive awareness has been accompanied by the political decision of the government of undertaking the importance of the risk of emergencies, as well as the importance of development processes and the need to adopt immediate measures to reduce our risk. We have an institute from 1995 on preparedness and response. It was created by Law 18,621 of 2009, which promoted it as an integrated system for risk reduction. The objective of SINAI is to protect people, goods, and the environment from adverse phenomena that could derive in situations of emergency or disaster, generating the conditions for sustainable development. This aspect is pertinent in Uruguay, is relevant. Risk reduction is stating that social and economic development should be sustained on criteria of equality and security acceptable to all through an informed and participative exercise with the citizens. SINAI is focused on the actions of the state to combat the risk of emergency and disasters in its different stages. The congressman had to create a space to articulate between the different institutions and civil society. Risk management, including the response of emergencies to disasters in Uruguay, is interinstitutional as a task. SINAI is located in the Presidency of the Republic, and the executive power. It has a technical direction that allows for the coordination, national coordination of public policies for risk management, and it facilitates also logistical coordination. At the department level, there are emergency departments that are the responsible entities to formulate within their competences, policies, and strategies locally. The operational stages of the departments are the centers to coordinate emergencies. The decentralization law and citizen participation law created a third level of government for risk management, municipalities. The framework of action of Hyogo was at all times, a technical reference to create our risk management system in the country. The 5 objectives and their indicators were a fundamental input to put together the strategies of institutional strengthening and public communication. We assessed positively the role of the framework of Hyogo and the coordination role which is carried out by the United Nations Office for the Reduction of Disaster Risk. We would like to state then our conviction that it is necessary to continue strengthening the coordination at the regional and global level to reduce disaster risks and to renew and deepen the commitments undertaken by the countries during the Hyogo conference. It is a great challenge to continue building long-term objectives and indicators of performance that will render our risks visible at every level, public, private, and the citizens together, and to orient in a coordinated manner the efforts to reduce them. Our experience suggests that key concepts that can enrich substantially the agreements established after the Hyogo framework are our responsibility. When societies and governments started realizing that disasters are not natural, even though there is a natural disaster involved, the position towards threats and vulnerabilities are always social constructions, then our national systems for risk reduction were born, because determining those social factors that determine a relationship of risk, a bit independent to the disasters, allowed us to manage it in different stages and with different strategies from an integrated framework. But we must continue making progress, supported in our first findings that we have to continue our development, having identified the collective responsibility of human activities regarding risk. We can think about particular specific responsibilities. We need to make an effort of risk analysis regarding externalities and consider the necessary mechanisms to reduce our risks, and that this must be assumed primarily by those direct responsible for causing them. The mechanisms of negative externalities included the promotion we have to fight negative externalities, and we have to promote ethical principles, think of broader governance frameworks that will facilitate accountability at the transnational level. We have to strengthen the mechanisms of particular responsibility or accountability, which allows us to manage them in a more efficient manner, as well as a basic manifestation of social justice. Thank you very much.
Venezuela is recognized. Good afternoon. It is not possible to forget the global processes of environmental, political, and social effects and globalization, and especially the fact that they have affected societies and their territories, and up until now irreversibly have been very pernicious. And this is a tendency, a trend that we see around the world. And so this desperate development of the most vulnerable communities have shown us that we will be witness to greater disasters. And now that we are understanding these trends, we need to recognize how inefficient we have been in becoming corrective instead of prospective, and the advances that the integral management has not been happening, and we are now seeing governments understanding and recognizing the need for a more proactive management, and how the efforts have been only dedicated to responding to contingencies. So we're urging people here, and we understand that for several years now, we need to understand that the experts around the world and the regional researchers, especially those who are part of the Latin American Network for Risk Prevention, which is the NET, which has issued statements and suggested in a metaphorical way, and they are reflecting that it is not possible that when we're faced with risk for a boat means a just sinking, and we here have other situations, and we are not doing anything to save the ship. This is a metaphor that we are only putting out first aid kits, which are not enough for a situation of the sort. And so we need to look at how we're going to manage risk in the future. For the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the Vice Ministry of Risk Management and Civil Protection, the ideas of the net are more than ever current and in effect, and we believe that approaching these themes continues to be absent from all the fora and organizations, international organizations promoting disaster reduction. We believe that it is very important to debate very profoundly the way in which the principles that are governing these initiatives need to be taken into account. It is a moral imperative that we promote a discussion that allows us to transform current structures to reduce disasters that have become, in years' time, more and more bureaucratic and justifying for meetings, declarations, and encounters, in some cases very unuseful, and while our peoples live one calamity after the next. We currently have a historic challenge to move ahead in reducing disasters and sustainability. This is a step that will launch us into the practical domains to be able to act on reducing risks, and we need to have a sustainability in all efforts, in all of our efforts, whether economic, social, or political. And we need to continue with our efforts that will enable us to develop our capacities to respond to disasters and becoming more resilient and to recover faster from after a disaster or calamity. And we need to maybe discuss whether or not we can commit exclusively to increasing resilience in with the purpose of being present and recover our own roads and our own levels of sustainability. I believe that the challenges are great and that we need to go beyond them and look at the conditions of vulnerability to be able to control them and to prevent the inevitable disasters. And these natural disasters are natural because they are occurring. But every effort in this regard that we may actions that we'll take, as the net suggests, they need to be interconnected. Everybody will have their stakeholders and their responsibilities. In this road, we need to forge ahead, and it is our moral obligation at all government levels and all organizations to promote and consolidate our models in our countries to be efficient and effective in risk management, to be able to manage appropriately and not to be accomplices in disasters. Thank you.
Sí. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. And now we will continue with the presentations by the intergovernmental organizations. And the first one will be, we will hear from the representative from CAPRADE.
Madam Minister, Ms. Wallström, the representatives of the Andean Committee for Disaster Prevention and Management, CAPRADE, participating in the fourth session of the Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction in the Americas, would like to manifest that CAPRADE, from its creation in 2002, has followed important institutional development, highlighting amongst its main achievements the approval in 2004 of the Andean Strategy for Prevention and Attention to Disasters through Decision 591 of the Andean Council of Foreign Affairs Ministers of the Andean Community as a set of policies and guidelines destined towards achieving risk reduction and a timely response to disasters in the sub-region. Likewise, its later harmonization within the Hyogo Framework of Action approved in 2009 through Decision 713, Andean Strategy for the Prevention and Management or Response to Disasters, having as an objective to contribute to risk disaster and the impact of disasters to help towards the sustainable development of all of the countries of the Andean sub-region through institutional strengthening and the establishment of strategic policies, programs and sub-programs common amongst the countries to exchange experiences and create networks and improve mutual collaboration in situations of disasters. This strategic framework has allowed us to achieve important progress in the implementation of the Hyogo Framework of Action in the countries of the sub-region, which have generated substantial changes in institutional, regulatory and technical models, creating better possibilities for the work on risk management of these three that have allowed for more effective integration of policies, plans and development, sustainable development programs and programs for the reduction of poverty, as well as to create methodologies, mechanisms and instruments geared towards strengthening disaster risk management with an integrated vision, including from a systemic perspective, risk management criteria in all of the processes, giving emphasis to the local and community activities. It is important to mention also the approval of the operational guideline for mutual assistance faced with for disasters of the member countries of the Andean Community, having as the objective to create mechanisms that will facilitate and support the existing mechanisms to tackle situations of disasters that require international humanitarian assistance. Even though the progress has been significant, gaining greater awareness of the importance on risk management, disaster risk management policies, it is still necessary to strengthen planning processes and decision-making processes. For this to be considered a priority issue in the agendas of the countries of the Andean sub-region at every level and be able to reduce our vulnerabilities, reduce the effective impacts on our development achievements and the losses caused by disasters, losses of lives, as well as of social, economic, and environmental goods of the communities and the countries. For what we have mentioned, we consider that the third Global Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction is an opportunity to reaffirm the importance of the strategic objectives of Hyogo and to acknowledge the relevance of the broadest participation of all of the stakeholders linked to this issue. It is important to also work on an integrated tackling of all of the processes related to disaster risk management, highlighting the linkage that should exist between the processes that reduce risk and those that have to do with humanitarian actions, considering their independence. We must point out that CAPRADE undertakes the commitment of promoting and disseminating the fast implementation of the results, the quick implementation of the results of the third conference on disaster risk reduction, especially regarding the adjustments that we must carry out on the policies for risk reduction in the Andean subregion and its policy of development and the integration in the policy of development to be able to achieve a more resilient society for the welfare of our peoples. Thank you very much. Sedima.
Ministra Cornejo, expreso mi agradecimiento a usted y a su gobierno por la maravillosa conferencia y por su ser anfitriones, y a la señora Margaret por liderazgo y representación. Esta conferencia ha sido ejemplar. Muchas gracias.
Friends, good afternoon. At the Caribbean regional level, implementation of the Enhanced Comprehensive Disaster Management Strategy 2007 to 2012, which was agreed to and adopted by all member states within the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management grouping, has contributed significantly to the HFA implementation process. At the end of that implementation period, SEDIMA undertook a review process to identify emerging gaps for input into the HFA review process, including a broad range of Caribbean stakeholder consultations, from civil society, national disaster offices, local governments, administrations, civil society groups, scientific community, the private sector, and regional organizations. The review process indicated that the SEDIMA system realized progress in two key areas. There was an overall progress in the mainstreaming of disaster risk reduction at the sectoral level. Targeted sectors included health, education, and agriculture. Second, the enabling environment for the implementation of comprehensive disaster management has been strengthened through the development of model national comprehensive disaster management policy, legislation, strategy, and work on legislation and policy has been advanced in several participating states and remains a priority for action in others. Based on the above, the SEDIMA proposes the following three messages to inform the post-2015 disaster risk reduction agenda. One, the first message is to embrace the opportunity for Caribbean leadership in the post-2015 disaster risk reduction agenda through established regional mechanisms such as the CDM strategy. This was one of the key outcomes of the Caribbean regional consultations on the HFA. In December 2013, SEDIMA launched the CDM strategy for the next 10-year period, dating 2014 to 2024, and is in the process of developing associated implementation plans and a performance monitoring framework to facilitate its effective implementation. In this regard, a priority area to inform the international discourse is the need for strengthened accountability to be achieved by enhanced results-based programming and monitoring. As SEDIMA develops the monitoring, evaluation, and reporting system for the CDM strategy, we will be seeking to develop shared indicators which will simplify the process for countries in the region to report on the Hyogo Framework of Action post-2015. This monitoring and evaluation system will also be a means to ensure accountability of the CDM partners for the delivery of results under the CDM strategy and for measuring the impact of our investments and initiatives. The second message is to support the joint pursuit of the post-2015 Hyogo Framework of Action and post-2015 Sustainable Development Agenda and to advocate for an integrated risk management approach which brings together the elements of disaster risk reduction, adaptation to climate change, disaster risk financing, and development planning within the overarching context of resilience. The UN Special Representative of the Secretary General for DRR in the document proposed elements for consideration captures this succinctly. Sustainable development goals cannot be achieved without managing disaster risk. The UNISDR advocates for disaster risk reduction as an instrument for sustainable development, as natural hazards such as earthquakes, cyclones, hurricanes, floods, landslides, and drought volcanoes pose significant threats to achieving and sustaining development goals. The third message and final message is that the agenda of small island development states remains a relevant consideration in the financing of post-2015 disaster risk reduction agenda. It is not disputed that in the case of the small island development states, single hazard events can erase decades of development, and we've witnessed this in the context of Grenada, in the context of Ivan, in Haiti, in the context of the 2010 earthquake, and in Montserrat. In conclusion, as we approach the end of the implementation of the Hyogo Framework of Action, it is important that we ensure that discussions on the way forward for post-2015 adequately reflects the achievements, experiences, concerns of the Caribbean region with respect to disaster risk reduction. For us, the global approach to addressing disaster risk is not simply a matter of academic interest. The growth and development of our nations and communities and the security of our future generations depend upon it. SEDIMA supports the ideas of the Hyogo Framework of Action and the Communique of Guayaquil as it is aligned with the ideals of the CDM system. Thank you very much.
Gracias. Nos faltan 4 declaraciones.
Thank you. We still have 4 more declarations to go. Please, let's try to keep them to the 5 minutes. Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much. Sorry I'm late. We had to go and buy some stuff in Guayaquil to take home. The government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago wishes to thank the UNISDR Regional Office and the government and people of Ecuador for facilitating this event. The National Disaster Office in Trinidad and Tobago falls under the Ministry of National Security. It is the national platform for managing DRR and climate change risks. In an attempt to mainstream DRR and make it a national and local priority, the National Disaster Office has strategically established a National Disaster Risk Reduction Committee. An interministerial committee for DRR also exists as an extension to this platform. Over the year, since my last statement in Chile, we have improved our business processes within the National Disaster Office. We have achieved a greater engagement with all the key stakeholders with a special reference to the scientists in the country, the insurance agencies, as well as our special needs populations. We have developed stronger strategic alliances. We have increased the situational awareness on a 24-hour basis of all our major risks and threats. We have had a greater focus by our population on the benefits of preparing for emergencies, and we have increased the branding of the National Disaster Office. Hyogo 1. There has been over 86 meetings of the National Disaster Committee over the last year with 120 hours of engagement. It is led by the private sector and includes representatives from public, private, and civil society, academic institutions, and professional bodies. 50 to 60% of our set targets have been achieved in this regard. Action 2. The main input, amongst others, into the overall enhancement of our risk management and early warning system has been the introduction of a National Operations Center and a Situational Awareness Center that also provides a 911 system to integrate all calls for emergencies. We have achieved 60% of our targets in this action. Action 3. Our main focus this year, including others, were CORE, our Communities Organized and Ready for Emergencies program. If you go on YouTube and you type ODPM official, you can have a lot more information on CORE. It is basically our methodology, our tool, our brand to meet with the persons in the homes, in the pueblos, at their homes themselves. We have introduced a 511 customer care center, which allows us to have customer service to follow up on all emergencies of persons who complain of problems related to disasters or emergencies in Trinidad and Tobago. 40 to 50% of our targets have been achieved. Action 4, most important item in Action 4 over the years has been our involvement with the private sector businesses and the use of their statutory board meetings to meet with them and engage. Action 5, the National Operations Center has given us a new trust in fusion, interoperability, and multi-sectoral coordination in our response, rehabilitation, and reconstruction activities. 50 to 60% of our targets have been met. Over the past decade, commendable strides have been made on a national level to mainstream DRR into the developmental planning process, supported by the government of Trinidad and Tobago. General issues have emerged due to poor institutional arrangements and outdated legislation. To add to these issues, disaster risk management are sometimes hindered by limited data availability, financial constraints, and knowledge transfer issues. There's been an overall acceleration of achievements, and an average of 56% of our set targets have been met over the last year. And finally, the ODPM, or the National Disaster Office, envisions itself as the conduit for practical connections between DRM and CCA, which can result in sustainable development. In fact, the institution will continue to mainstream DRR sector-wide while reinforcing the need to rehabilitate rather than recover simply from disasters, with a special emphasis on incorporating mitigative mechanisms towards building national and community resilience, especially with the scientists and with our risk transfer mechanisms. This approach espouses the recommendations put forward by the enhanced CDM strategy and the HFA and beyond. We do this as we aim to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Thank you very much.
Por favor, se preenac para su declaración. Gracias.
I'm very pleased to greet and salute all of the delegations of the different countries and nations that are here present this morning. The government of Ecuador, we thank the government of Ecuador, we thank the officers of the UNISDR who are participating at the 4th Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction of the Americas. Thank you to all the successful management and coordination, which shows the importance and relevance of the risk management for the adequate development of our South Latin American region, where Central America is immersed. In the context of the Central American Alliance for Development, the governments of Central America have coincided in convergence of working on a common agenda that will lead to the development of a business and competitive climate in the region. In this agenda, the priority action areas are, as identified, are the attraction to productive investment, promoting international competition and commerce, improving the infrastructure and integration in customs and environmental actions, among others. And all of this involves risk management, and for Central America to be better prepared to respond to all natural disasters and tropic events. And in this, faced with this reality, we have developed processes to consolidate its capacities in risk management and adverse effects of disasters, to approach and risk in a integral manner. And we have improved the technical systems, and we've also incorporated social institutions, economic, environmental institutions to consolidate an interinstitutional focus and intersectorial for approaching the risk reduction. We've also promoted a constant adaptation of laws and policies that consolidate the national systems for risk management. And we've also made available all technical resources and cooperation for equipment and research, cooperation and technologies from the different sectors, and to lead management actions, risk management actions. and especially in the disaster risk management in all its phases. We recognize the importance to have mechanisms, regional, local, national, and work with international organizations to consolidate the mutual cooperation, mutual aid mechanisms to include Central America task manuals of the foreign ministers of foreign relations and other humanitarian aid systems and the academia as well. Also, we're developing processes to integrate the variables of risk management and public investment with applications that are pilot programs in high-risk areas and recovery post-disaster strategies are included in the national models to manage risk um, with a gender focus in local governments and including representatives of the civil society, thus strengthening the vision of frontline. Also, ordinary meetings of heads of state and government will acknowledge the paradigm of an integral management of the climate change risk and to have a permanent dialogue or mechanism on these issues and between the isthmus and the international community to understand the issues and the concerns. Adaptation to climate change and integral management of risk are important and priority issues on the agendas of the Central American presidents. And are also important to the integration process. And then in this regard, it has been adopted and it is being progressively implemented. And we're talking about the national policies for risk reduction and to reduce vulnerability and risk, as well as to increase our levels of adaptation. From our modest point of view and as regional contributors and in our greatest competency in this area of risk management, we trust and we expect that for the global conference on disaster reduction for 2015 in Japan, in March in Japan, we will be able to offer a very interesting three-pronged issue: climate change, disaster management, and and it should be a framework for safe development and sustainable development. And I have to thank the community and the United Nations for the efforts and their contribution to Central American countries, which we have implemented in Central America within the framework of Hyogo, and their support we have lent to them and the support that they have given us for our programs, and thanks to the policies and national plans that we can now coordinate. Thank you very much.
Reu, por favor.
Reu, please, you have the floor. Head of the Regional Office of UNISDR, Ricardo Mena, and the Minister of Risk Management of Ecuador, María Pilar Cornejo. Good morning to all. During the summit of Mercosur of Asunción, Paraguay, carried out in July 2009, the presidents and foreign affairs ministers of the region decided to express their position regarding the problem of risk management and humanitarian assistance, and they created a specialized meeting for the reduction of natural disasters, civil risks, civil protection and humanitarian protection, REU. The presidents of Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay approved a specific declaration that acknowledged that with the increase of disasters in the region, there is a need to disseminate, have a more agile response and greater prevention of this phenomenon. The leaders agreed on the importance of the Hyogo framework of action and expressed their interest in including local risk management in the public agency of the countries of the sub-region, promoting organized assistance so that all of the beneficiaries can participate in prevention and mitigation of disasters. Likewise, they decided to establish an institutional mechanism to coordinate, cooperate, and discuss that will allow to make the sub-regional experiences systematic and obtain mechanisms to prevent and diminish the effects of disasters, as well as generating permanent institutional relationships between those organizations that work in this issue. In 2013, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela was formally included in REO as a member state of Mercosur, thus opening up the potential of this integration process. National coordinations of REO are carried out by the competent authorities to tend to emergencies and risk management, together with the organizations of the ministries of foreign affairs that coordinate international humanitarian assistance. Likewise, REO has a technical secretariat that supports the pro tempore chairmanship, which at the moment is under the Republic of Argentina. From its creation, our countries sustained that disasters are not natural, even when the event that takes place is natural, as exposition to threats and vulnerability are always social constructions. With this perspective, if there is something that is not natural, it is precisely the disaster itself. Identifying social and environmental factors that determine a situation of risk opens up the possibility of managing it in different stages and with different strategies from an integrated perspective. Through REO, we have been able to increase levels of coordination between the national systems of risk management through information exchange and the promotion of activities that are allowing us to broaden the scope of action. The decision of the countries of carrying out a process of technical meetings with specialists from the 4 countries on different topics with the aim of moving forward in the exchange of experiences and creating shared proposals. It's a key example of Mercosur and its interest in working towards risk management and humanitarian assistance in times when disasters reoccur every day more frequently and every day are less natural. So REO is promoting joint initiatives in different topics, such as the integrated management of humanitarian input, management of hydric basins, a shared database, tackling trans-border problems, and the creation of a network of researchers on risk issues in Mercosur with the full knowledge of the importance that scientists and academia have for management of disaster risks. The representatives of REO would like to express some recommendations looking towards a new framework for the post-2015 period. We would like to reaffirm that the preparatory process to the 3rd Global Conference is timely to review the Hyogo framework of action and identify its main challenges and limitations, and for the results of the conference to be suitable to the realities of developing countries and coherent with their sustainable development agenda, looking towards a new social and economic development model that is environmentally sustainable in order to reduce disaster risk. We acknowledge that the vision of the Hyogo framework of action should strengthen the understanding that disasters are not natural, they are not exogenous, and thus the social structure focused on poverty and inequality are the main risks that our peoples are exposed to, and thus priorities of actions and strategic objectives should tackle the deep causes of vulnerability to these disasters through the coordination of actions, not only corrective and prospective, but also they must include the productive aspects, generating income and access to services and dignified housing in rural and urban areas. We would like to call on the 3rd conference to promote a new model of international cooperation for risk reduction based on cooperation with networks of training and dialogue. And finally, we would like to thank the people and government of the Republic of Ecuador for their joint effort in organizing this fourth session of the regional platform. Thank you very much. Thank you. UNASUR, I think you are the last participant.
The grand finale at the summit of Foreign Relations Minister of UNASUR on the 29th August in 2013 in Suriname. A committee was, a high-level group was created, and it was assigned to the government of Chile. The important task was to analyze the recommendations that the group of experts proposed as the basis for a task force to manage risk and disasters, and to put this on the high level priorities for the meeting held in Lima in 2013. It is important to see that the objectives are very aligned with the strategies that and the guidelines of the HIOGO and the international framework for disaster risk post 2015, detailed as follows: to contribute to reduce disaster risk through policies and strategies and plans, to promote activities that will work on the cycle of risks, and also exchanging experiences, and to establish cooperation mechanisms to coordinate national systems to try and forge ahead in adopting regional policies in everything that has to do an integral perspective. And up until now, several activities have been carried out to organize this challenging task, which has already completed one stage with the group task force held at the meeting in Santiago in 2014, which early 2014, where they approved the lines of action and activities that ended up being in a guiding document for the PTP of UNASUR in terms of the risk management. And because of the amount necessary, will need to be followed up. And amongst the important objectives, we highlight the creation of exchange capacity on a regional, local, and national levels, the developing information systems, promoting, monitoring, early warning, and specific plans for prevention, estimation, and disaster care. Also, a structure for social participation and promoting mutual assistance and disaster and um, adaptation to climate change, for promoting communities, and also national policies for disasters and international cooperation for the risk management, and to promote ministerial agreements by UNASUR and the disaster risk management policies with all the practical applications. And within the first work meeting, a consultation was made to the countries of UNASUR as far as the new guidelines, and this was an activity that had Margareta Wallström on board as part of the meeting, and it became an important landmark in the disaster risk management and international strategies, and we hope that the future generations will be able to enjoy a more friendly, more equitable, and a better planet with a better response capacity, and that the impact generated by the disasters will affect less the most vulnerable people. Thank you. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Muy buenas tardes, señoras y señores. Yo soy de la Agencia de Corporación Japonesa Internacional MEDE. Muchas gracias por darme la oportunidad de explicar las recomendaciones de
for action post-HFA. Today, I have picked up 3 recommendations for post-HFA to be emphasized. Based on the JICA's experience as the implementing agency of Japanese ODA, Official Development Assistance, and in addition, based on the international trends such as mainstreaming disaster risk reduction. First one is to clearly mention on the promotion of DRR investment leading by the government in the priority for action of post-HFA. If the people can escape from the disaster but they lost property, they can't get away from negative chain between disaster and poverty. It means the base of development is to decrease the economic loss in addition to save the people's lives by reducing the risks and tackling with the structural measures even though cost budget. The best mix approach, both structural and non-structural measures are needed. Why the government are difficult to allocate the budget to DRR, especially prior investment? There are some reasons. Some of them are that it is difficult to set up indicators of DRR target and effect, and also difficult to show how contribute to the sustainable development. DRR investment is not cost, which doesn't expect return, but necessary asset, which contribute social and economic development. In Japan, 1916, more than 50 years ago, when the GDP per capita by purchasing power parity was less than 2,000 US dollars. Even so, the budget for disaster reduction was between 5% to 8% of the proportion to the general account budget every year. Japan continues to allocate DRR investment not only the period the serious disaster occurred, but also normal situation. Second stress point which should be emphasized in post-HFA is on the importance of risk assessment. JICA is ahead of trying to input the disaster risk assessment to all projects before the project implementation. On the disaster risk assessment, information and data based on the reliable hazard and risk analysis are very important. The disaster statistics, including the small-scale disasters such as less than 10 deaths to and less than 100 affected people, is not negligible. Third point is to consider Build Back Better in the reconstruction stage. Build Back Better means reconstruction must take account of future hazards and risks. That means the reconstruction is not to return to its original, but make toward the resilient society and community. Also, when the reconstruction stage, we have opportunities to promote the DRR investment guided by the government. JICA eagerly recommends the DRR investment before the disasters as mentioned, but it may be very difficult because of the limited budget in reality. The government is hard to gain the public's understanding for the prior investment for disaster reduction on unidentifiable disasters occurred in the future, tend to put priority immediate need of economic and social infrastructure. The clear policy for building the disaster resilient society in the reconstruction stage after the disasters is necessary at least, all the more for the difficulty of the prior investment. Today, I mentioned 3 recommendations in the post-HFA to be emphasized. First, promotion of DRR investment by the government. Second, strengthening of disaster risk assessment. Third, building back better into the reconstruction stage. That is my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. See you in Sendai.
Ahora sí.
I was saying that we are going to have a final presentation. We have a list of organizations that have prepared statements, and they are going to be included in our website because of time constraints, especially because a lot of people have planned to go back home after the closing ceremony, and so it is extremely important that we keep a strict eye on our times. After this last presentation, we will continue with the closing ceremony. Good afternoon. The International Federation of the Red Cross believes that disaster risk reduction is an important contribution to building more safe and resilient communities, and it's very important that we work within the framework of Hyogo. We apply vulnerabilities and capacities and analyze the communities where we act in the Red Cross, and it would be very important to include this locally. In America, the Red Cross only in 2013, through its 5,000 local offices, managed to benefit 3.3 million people with international resources that are multiplied at the national and local level. The International Federation of Red Cross is committed to take the leaders of 35 national societies in the Americas the following recommendations in a process previous to the Global Conference of 2015 to increase awareness on the impacts of daily threats, recurring daily threats, to a lower scale, such as underlying inherent risks to sustainable development. Most losses by disasters are due to small and mid-size silent disasters, which are relatively frequent and tend to be underreported, and they affect development. The Hyogo framework of action should have indicators that reflect losses and loan or credit conditions locally facing reoccurring disasters. For example, the resources invested by the Red Cross in the continent show us that only 6% of the disasters were regional and 82% had a national and local impact, causing harm that is ever growing and growing vulnerability at the community level. We have to give priority to people in situations of vulnerabilities and greater risk. Impacts affect in a disproportionate manner those countries of low income. Government organizations need to be strengthened to have greater resilience capacity in order to favor the vulnerable and marginalized groups of society. The agendas for this risk management should make a priority those under greater risk, especially those who live in remote areas that are affected by insecurity or conflicts, migrant populations affected by impacts of climate change, and those populations that live under urban overpopulation. The Red Cross is increasing its collaboration and coordination with national and local governments to develop joint efforts that will empower the most vulnerable communities. For this to get greater levels of security and resilience, we need to broaden and integrate the participation of indigenous and Afro-descendant populations, as well as the disabled, elderly, in creating community resilience. We must try to get communities to undertake the leadership towards resilience. They must be agents of change, allowing for healthy and safe livelihoods for all. To get the communities committed with resilience ideals, they must be organized, they must be empowered as creators of their own destiny and transformation. Resilience is product of a dynamic community that promotes and proposes and acts and is linked to other actors. This requires changes in the regulations, values, perceptions, and an attitude to risk by the population, as well as changes in institutional legislation and public policies. Let's keep in mind that for community participation to be effective, they need to be involved in the decision-making processes to achieve a lasting impact in these processes. Assistance of reference centers of the Red Cross to the Americas help potentiate the capacities of the national societies, of the communities of knowledge, and of different stakeholders. Continuous support of institutions that have trusted on the work of the Red Cross allow us to harmonize tools and methodologies that contribute towards achieving community resilience. Strengthening local risk management is an essential priority that requires changes in the public policies and new regulations to improve the participation and the development of capacities, capacity building at the local government level, including flexible funding, decentralized funding that will support local actions, as well as promoting a culture of social inclusion, alliances and partnerships with other stakeholders. Our role, the role of the Red Cross, makes us develop these aspects of local risk management for communities. We're committed on capacity building and training using our network that reaches tens of thousands of people every year, as well as including tools of innovation and virtual learning. And finally, to strengthen the regulatory frameworks for disaster risk reduction that are a local priority, as well as the use of instruments to review decision-making regulations. Thank you. We will continue, ladies and gentlemen. We will now begin this closing ceremony of the 4th Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction in the Americas, and we would like to invite Mr. Ricardo Mena, Head of the Regional Office for the Americas of the Office of the United Nations for Disaster Risk Reduction, UNISDR, to address us. Thank you very much, Humberto. And before continuing with some words of gratitude, I would like to very briefly share with you a video that is 50 seconds long, and it is our first announcement on the UN Sasakawa Award for Disaster Reduction that is being launched now, and the winners will receive this award during the global conference in Sendai next March. Acknowledging excellency in risk reduction, disaster risk reduction, for a world that's safer and more sustainable. Acknowledging the people that have helped making our lives more safer. Please appoint a candidate for this prize. Process of nominations, nominate a candidate open until June 23, 2014. We will know the winners during the 3rd Global Conference in Sendai. We would like to incentivize all of you to participate. Very well, and the time has come to close this meeting, and obviously I would like to begin by thanking our excellent host, the government of Ecuador, represented by Mrs. María del Pilar Cornejo, Minister of Risk Management. It is difficult for me as an Ecuadorian to say that we have been made to feel at home. but I am going to represent Ms. Wallström, who has asked me to do so, to say on behalf of Ms. Wallström that during this meeting we have all felt at home. Pilar, thank you very much. And obviously the bar has been set very high for the next regional platform of the Americas. And I would like to thank also Pilar's team, as I know that they have been working at least for 7 months on the organization of this platform. Cecilia, Alina, Ana Rosa, Sandra, you have all made really a wonderful job, and I would like to thank, obviously, all of the advisory council to the regional platform who steered us, guided us, and supported us throughout this event up to now. Thank you very much, dear members of the advisory committee. And obviously, I would like to thank all of our sponsors, particularly USA DOFTA and the government of Switzerland, who together with a long list of sponsors have made this event possible and have made it possible for many of you to be here today. Obviously, as head of the regional office, I am extremely grateful for all of the work and sacrifice of the Office of Panama to help carry out this event successfully. So once again, thank you.
Y así también a varias personas y
Also, other people who a lot of the time have a very low profile, but they should not be left unmentioned. We have had a team of liaison, our champions, who quietly have been working and supporting us in order to have a successful meeting. So thank you very much. And I would also like to thank the representatives from the media, the photographers, all of the hotel team, translators, interpreters, sound, cameramen, and all of the support group who has accompanied us throughout these meetings. And now we have to start working towards the fifth session, the fifth meeting of the regional platform for disaster risk reduction of the Americas. And I would like to take advantage of the podium to enthuse the countries to express their interest if they wish to host the next platform. As I have just said, the bar has been set quite high, very high. Let's hope that we have a platform that is as successful as this one. And finally, I would like to invite all of you to, after these discussions that we have held, that I think have been very productive and fruitful, to carry out a very active participation and to take a vigorous voice of the region in the process of organization for the global conference in Sendai, Japan. I believe that this region has a lot of input to have included. I believe we have many initiatives that are globally worth replicating, and I believe that the participation both of our government's representatives as well as the stakeholders should work tirelessly from now until March 2015 so that Sendai can hear loudly the voice of the Americas. Thank you very much. To officially close this fourth meeting of the Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction of the Americas, we would like to invite Dr. María del Pilar Cornejo de Grunauer, Risk Management Minister of Ecuador, to share a few words with us. Thank you very much, Ricardo, for your kind words. I truly hope that you have felt at home. For us, the challenge has not only been the organizational aspects of the event, but to try to practice what we preach. This is to really show through the results of this event the road that we have already traveled regarding risk reduction, a road that leads us to development and to the eradication of poverty in our region. I would also like to show our leader, who's always inspiring us, that we have just started on this road. We have just embarked on this road, that there's a lot of work to be done so that this awareness of prevention is implicit in all of our actions, not only as authorities, but also as citizens. The advantage of this meeting is that we are shown that we are not alone, and precisely this teamwork, this common agenda that we have discussed in the meeting is what has allowed us to truly share experiences so that this right to knowledge here has been fully brought about, because each one of us takes somebody else's knowledge with them. The experience that we have lived here is also very useful to break through paradigms and to be able to exchange horizontally and in a transparent manner what we do. In our specific case, we hope to represent adequately the region, together with Jamaica, in the Caribbean and Latin American group in preparation to the Sendai 2015 conference. We also hope that we have contributed towards having a more inclusive meeting for those of us with disabilities, and that in the future we must not forget and leave aside children, young people. I would like to thank all of you who have left behind your offices and families for 3 and more days to share your work with us. I would like to thank you for coming here, especially with openness, to present the results of all the work that has been carried out throughout the Americas. I would like to express my thanks to the United Nations team in this co-organization of the event, and really in a very special manner my team. They know how demanding I can be, and I think they have really responded, not only for those who are present here, and I would like to ask you for a warm round of applause, please, for them, but also for many others who are joining us online and who were sending me messages saying, we can hear the conference, we like the presentations, so thank you all. I would also like to thank the people who are following this meeting online, and I would like to help the staff who helped us in the organization of the event, the hotel staff, and also the media, and I have a very special message for them. I think the role today, when information through fiber optics, satellites, etc., is transferred at the speed of light, it becomes extremely important, first of all, to inform on issues related to prevention. Secondly, not to exaggerate when we have a situation of emergency, because those exaggerations can stress even further a population who is already under stress. Thirdly, please, help us along the way. If we make mistakes, let us know, but in a constructive manner. I believe that the role of the media is something that should also be included in Sendai. Thank you very much for being here, for participating. I declare the event closed. I hope to see you back in Ecuador, hopefully on a holiday. Thank you.
Con las palabras de la doctora.
With the words of Dr. María Pilar Cornejo, we consider officially closed this meeting and the fourth session of the regional platform, and now out of the bounds of protocol, and with the acceptance of the doctor and Dr. Mena, we would like to invite all of you who want to come for a group picture to come and join us to the front. The photographers are ready and the stage is yours. Join us.
Vengan todos.
Adelante, por favor. Adelante. No. Sí. Está bien. Adelante, por favor. Gracias, podemos ir colocándonos y vamos a hacer varias fotografías. Qué bueno que hay una nutrida asistencia a la fotografía. ¿Los fotógrafos están listos? Adelante. Hasta aquí, por el peso, hasta aquí la siguiente. La siguiente. Cuidado, el peso. El peso, ya no más. Vamos a invitar, si me confirman que han tomado la primera fotografía. No queremos terminar en las noticias por una tarima que se cae, así que vamos a tomarla y los invitamos a bajar. ¿Listos? ¿Listos? Bien, invitamos a bajar del escenario, damas y caballeros, señoras, señores, y un siguiente grupo. Muy bienvenido. Muy bien, gracias. Sí, claro. Primero bajemos.
Gracias por todo.
No. No, está bien. Pero debería ser selfie, ¿no?
Claro, exacto.
Claro. Por favor, vayan colocándose el segundo grupo delante de la tarima. Llamamos a promotoras, promotores de la campaña mundial de ciudades resilientes, equipos de trabajo.
Acá arriba también sale, ¿no?
Sí.
Sí.
Hasta aquí por el peso. Siguiente. Correcto. Sí, pero adelante, procedan. Claro.
Que se agrupen, por favor. Pensaba que ya se había terminado. Por eso te vine a buscar. Salí con lo más guapo que tiene esta
Aprovechamos y les comentamos que todas estas fotografías están en Flickr, entrando a la página de UNISDR Las Américas, y la plataforma completa está en YouTube, en Twitter y en Facebook. Llamamos por último a un siguiente grupo y especialmente al equipo de trabajo de la Secretaría de Gestión de Riesgos y al equipo de trabajo de UNISDR Las Américas. Sí. Adelante, adelante, son parte del equipo de trabajo. Van a estar en internet. Las fotografías están subiendo a internet desde hace 3 días y están en Flickr a través de UNISDR y también de la Secretaría de Gestión de Riesgos.
Ahora hemos tomado la foto de los que nos invitaron.
Ok, ok. ¿Podemos hacer una siguiente fila aquí abajo, por favor? Va, entonces esperamos un momentito. ¿Listos? Ahora, espérame, sí. Bien, llamamos ahora en esta primera fila equipos de la Secretaría de Gestión del Riesgo, equipo de UNISDR y delegación brasileña, delegación de Brasil, por supuesto, y nos acompañan también representantes del Sistema de Naciones Unidas.
Y aquí, aquí de seguro salgo, en la parte de Humberto.
¿Listos? Vamos a tomar la última. Sí, señor.
Su orden. Toma nota. Humberto, ya no queda nada de material.
Excelente. ¿Listos? Doctora, señor Mena, por favor, ¿listos para la foto? Muchísimas gracias. Muy buen viaje y feliz retorno. Al contrario.